I'm David Volk, a voice of the resistance, albeit a strange and funny one. Today's post, I go into the way back machine for, am I live or am I Memorex? Pay no attention to the man on all those screens. I just got back from the border, and what I saw made me know for sure we're out of order. The Border by Little River Band. I admit it right up front that Nashville isn't exactly on the U.S. border, much less any of Tennessee's state borders. But I noticed some mighty strange things while I was there last week. Although it is the capital of country music, I was disturbed to discover that there wasn't a single missing dog roaming the streets or lost dog notices on phone poles. There weren't any stolen pickup trucks in evidence, and no one seemed to be walking around with the honky-tonk blues. I didn't go anywhere near honky-tonks, mind you, and I don't know if their blues are any different from anyone else's, but I can definitely say that there weren't any blues, honky-tonk or otherwise, at the Goo Goo Cluster store. I did notice another disturbing personal trend, though. That was my decision to watch the Grand Ole Opry on television. It wasn't weird because I'm not a big country music fan, though. No, it was because I found myself watching the show on television while I was sitting in the audience at the Grand Ole Opry as it was being performed. The odd thing is, my seat wasn't particularly bad. In fact, I was on the aisle in row L, 12 rows back from center stage. I was close enough to see the performers and their facial expressions, but I still felt compelled to watch the big screen to see what was on the big stage right in front of me, and I'm still not sure why. The view wasn't much different, it was just closer. And there were so many of them. I counted 6 screens that I could see, and that doesn't include the ones that were further back or the ones in the balcony. There were times when having the screen was helpful, like the times when the camera was focused on a piano player's hands or the guitar the lead was playing, but it was distracting too. No matter how hard I tried to focus on the singer in front of me, my eyes still kept drifting back to the screen, and I'm still not quite sure what I hoped to see. Was it aliens popping out of Mike Schneider's guitar? An ad for Stetson on another singer's hat? A network breakaway to cover the latest mass shooting? I wasn't the only one, of course. Many of the people around me kept glancing up too. My son, an addict to all electronic screens, no matter whether they are phone-sized or larger than your average wall, was transfixed. In fact, the only person who didn't seem to be focused on the TV screens was the woman in front of me who was looking at the screen on her phone as she did live feedback to her undoubtedly tens of followers who would be in turn transfixed by what they saw on their screens. Which makes sense because they were the only people involved in the equation who weren't in the same room as the action. So they had to watch their screens. This isn't the first place I've seen this happen. When my employer sponsored an employee night at Seattle Mariners baseball game recently, all of us were on the park's 100 level with many of our seats just 20 to 30 rows back from the dugout. Yet all of us were reacting to the time-delayed action on the overhead screens. If one of the opposing team's batters struck out, we would respond a few seconds after the final strike was called, even though many others in the crowd were already applauding. When a Mariner got hit by a pitch, the rest of the fans were booing before we knew why. And I'm pretty sure that some of us weren't even aware we were really at the ballpark until we looked up at the TV and saw ourselves or our coworkers on the screens. It's almost as if someone looked up and said, "I must be here because there I am." I wonder if they remember to ask, then where am I? I could understand doing this at football games when you're in the nosebleed seats and having trouble figuring out what the hell happened in the chaos of a running play, but I'm a bit puzzled why people go to conferences, sit in the front 10 or so rows of a keynote speech, for example, and then spend their entire time staring at the screen overhead. Are they hoping for something to happen? Are they waiting for the image on the screen to say, pay no attention to the person on stage, and then start saying something different? Or have we finally reached the point in society where the only way we can be sure something happened is to see it on TV? I certainly hope not, but I'm not so sure. Many election deniers believe that 2 Atlanta vote counters were passing a thumb drive back and forth because Rudy Giuliani showed the video footage on television and told viewers that was what was happening when the 2 women were really only passing a roll of candy back and forth. And then there was the case of the first COVID vaccine recipient who everyone thought had died because she fainted on camera, immediately after receiving the first shot. And that doesn't take into account all the television series that use special effects to make us think something happened that could never have happened. The actors are so believable, the plotlines so realistic, and the stories are so similar to what we're all going through now in our own lives that it's sometimes hard to believe that it's not all real. But I promise you, it isn't. Trust me on this. I'm a trained journalist, and I know the difference between fact and fiction and what's really real and what's reality TV. And when I'm not sure myself, I've got a network of great sources to help me tell the difference, like my friends Rachel and Ross, my editor Lou Grant, my favorite teacher Walter White, my personal coach Ted Lasso. And I know if none of them can help me, then I better call my attorney, Saul Goodman. That's all. Show's over. Nothing left to see here. Everyone just go on home. I've been David Volk, the voice of the resistance. I'll be the strange and funny one. Oh, shit.